it's Tuppence again. Welcome to another Froggy Friday. So I've got a few things in front of me. I've been on a bit of a seaside or ocean themed kick recently. So I've got my Froggy mould. I've got some Aurora Powder. I've got a monofilament line or a fishing line, whichever you want to call it, and a cabochon mould. And I've also got some opalescent glitter, which I'm going to be using. So come see what I do with this. Okay, before I start, I need to put some Vaseline on the tips of the fingers of my gloves. Please excuse the state of them because I am trying to reuse as much of my product as I can. So I'm using some clear UV clay, also known as nail builder gel. I'm going to scoop some of that out. I don't need an awful lot, just probably a small marble sized blob. Make sure that I put the lid back on and keep that out of the light. I'm also going to use some of this Aurora powder, and I got both of those from Temu, so check my description box for the links. So I'm dipping that blob in there, and that should coat it with enough Aurora powder. And then I can try and peel this off. It is so gloopy, this stuff, and it sticks to pretty much everything. So I'm going to mix that colour in. Give it a good mix and fold over between my fingers. And as you handle this, it does become softer because it gets hotter. It's like pretty much any UV resin. The hotter it gets, the more fluid it becomes. I'm just going to try and scrape off the rest of it that is on my spatula and make sure that all that colour is mixed in. Then I can roll this into a ball. Now I've got enough to do several pieces here, so I only need a small amount first and roll that into a ball. And I'm going to use one of the round cabochon moulds, so I'll put that ball in there, and I'm using a pipette, the wrong end of a pipette, the balloon end, and I'm trying to form a cup within that cabochon mould. So I'm just pushing it down, creating a dip in the centre and smoothing out the edges. And I don't need it to be level with the surface. I don't even need it to be straight. I'm going to go ahead and make a few different sizes. I'm doing exactly the same. Place it into slightly smaller cabochon and use the end of the pipette. Okay, I'm going to try this small one. Well, the pipette doesn't really fit in there, so I need something else. I can use the end of this silicone tool. Alright, I've got 3, but I still have a little bit of clay left, so I'm going to try an even smaller one. And that works. I think that's enough for now. Right, now I need to use some of this fishing line. I'm going to use some scissors to cut off small sections, and then I'm going to stand them up in the cup so that they're sticking upwards. And I want maybe 3 or 4 in each one. And I kind of want them to look like, well, I'm making jellyfish, so I want them to be the tentacles of the jellyfish. So once I've got these set in there, I'm hoping that the clay is going to be strong enough to keep them standing up. But as I say, when this stuff gets warm, it starts to get fluid, and they are starting to lean over a little bit. So I'm just going to wrangle them back together. And then once I've got these in place, I'm going to quickly set that using my torch just to keep them upright. So it'll be a flash cure. And then once I've got those in place so that they've stopped moving around, I can do the same to the other ones. And as if by magic, they're done. So now I'm going to place them underneath my lamp, cure this properly, and I'll do that from the top and the bottom of the mould. Okay, they are fully cured now, and I'm going to use some of the Let's Resin UV resin. I'll put a blob in the cup. That should be enough. And then I'm going to use the same Aurora powder that I used for the cups. And I only need a little bit of that in there. So I'll mix that in. Make sure that there aren't any lumps of powder left. This Aurora gives you a milky white resin with a kind of pinky gold shift. So I've almost got that mixed in. I'm putting blobs onto that fishing wire and I'm setting it immediately. I want to create beads along the line. So I'll keep picking up a blob of the resin and I'll wipe my stick against that fishing line and it will set into a bead with that torch shining on it. So I'm going to do the same for all of these, and I did actually later figure out when I made some after this that it was easier to lay this fishing line down and make the beads first, then chop it up and set it into here. So this took a little while, but you get the idea. Once I had all of these pieces covered, I popped them underneath my lamp and made sure that it was all fully cured again. Then I created lots of jellyfish in different sizes. I also added some of the same resin into the middle. I didn't want to lose that cup shape, but I wanted to make sure that these fishing lines wouldn't come loose. Some jellyfish have wonderful colours inside them, and so I wanted to replicate that. I used some chunky opalescent glitter and I'm adding that to the centre of the cup. Okay, they're ready for demoulding. I'm going to pop them out from the bottom. You can see that they do look a lot like jellyfish. They're also pretty top heavy because the tendrils are very light, but the cap's quite heavy. I really like the effect on the top there. I think I better pop that out from the bottom rather than pull those tendrils. The cups are not perfectly round, which I think gives a much better jellyfish effect. I've added some of the opal glitter into this, although it's not really visible on camera, but I can see it in real life. So I've got lots of different sizes and I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use, but I am going to go ahead and make some more. I love these tiny little ones. I didn't put very many tendrils in those and it was very difficult to get small beads on there. So I'm going to go ahead and make a whole load more, as many as I can, and we'll see how many I can fit in my frog. Okay, I have made a bunch more. And you can see that they want to lay with their caps down and their tendrils upright. Now I don't want that to happen in my frog. I want them to appear to be swimming horizontally. So I think I'm going to have to use some UV resin to fix them down. At least the ones on the bottom. And that way they should lay horizontal. So I think that will fit into the head. I'm going to add UV resin on the side. I'll put it on the side of the cap and then I can try and lay that in the head, get it as far forward as I can and use my UV torch to set that. So once I've got this set here so that I can let go of it, I will cure it from the other side of the mould as well. There you go, that's not moving, and then I can give that a cure there as well. So this is not the largest one that I made, but the other one that was just far too big. I've got a lot of medium and small ones. This I think I'm going to fix to the side. Put a blob on the side of the cap and then fix that in place until I can let go, and then I'll fix it from the other side. I think I will set a few in place and then pour some resin, wait for that to go off, and then I can add some more on top of that resin and use the same process to fix them onto the surface. Okay, let's pop one on. Well, I kind of want them all going in one direction because I think that tends to happen in a swarm, but I do maybe want some looking like they're going in the arm. I'll pop that just on the shoulder. I think they're too small to get all of the little tendrils in the legs. I don't want them to be sticking up above the surface. Just make sure that is set really well. Okay, it doesn't need very long. I will, once I've got all of these in place, again use my big lamp to make sure that they are all cured. I want this kind of floating, so I think if I can try and fix this on top of the tendrils, that might be enough to hold it in place and it will be floating below the surface. So I'm just going to try and fix that in place. I don't know whether they'll be strong enough, and I don't know if there's actually enough surface area for that to stick on. Nope. Alright, let me take that off, and oh lovely, I managed to knock the one on the side off as well. So let me just fix this and then I can put that back in place. I think I'm going to speed this up because it's just going to be me sticking these to the side of the mould. Okay, I've set the first lot in here and I've got some that I want to put on the next layer. So I've mixed up just about around 2 ounces of craft resin, and I used my Resiners mixer to do that so I can try and eliminate most of the bubbles. And I'm going to pour this really gently over the top of them so that I don't disturb them. So we know the frog takes 4 ounces, so this should give me about halfway. I'm going to pour this over the top, try and minimize the bubbles that I might get around them. I don't want to dislodge them from the place that I've put them. Pour it in. I should be able to just dump the rest in now. Okay. And once this is set, that should give me enough room that I can put the rest of these in, and I will be able to build them onto the surface using the UV resin in the same way. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to leave this and I'll be back when I can put these other ones on. Alright, that 2 ounces of resin is now set and I can put these pieces in. So again, I'm going to put a blob of the UV resin on the cap, and then I can fix this to the surface that is already in there. That way they're going to lay flat, or at least be swimming horizontally, and the tendrils won't be sticking up out of the mould. So I should have just enough room for them to be in there without any of the tendrils coming out. Okay, the last of the jellyfish are fixed in place, and I've cured this again for 150 to make sure that there's no raw UV resin. So I've mixed up another 2 ounces of craft resin. Bearing in mind this frog takes 4 ounces and I already put 2 in. I'm probably going to have just a small amount left over because each of these is going to take up some room in the frog. And I do want to leave a little bit of room. I might want to put something on the back. Depends what it looks like once I've got this out. So I'm just going to pour all the resin in. Try and get into all the toes. I'm going to use a stick to get rid of any of the bubbles underneath the chin and the hips. Just need to be really careful that I don't dislodge anything. The last of the resin, and then I'm going to give this a spritz of isopropyl alcohol and I'll be back for demould. That's all nice and cured now, and do have a small amount of the tendril poking up, but I am probably going to cover the back here. I just want to see what it looks like when I get this out. I'm going to speed up this demould. I'll get it off the hips first and off the feet, and the feet are still a little bit soft, so I do need to be a little careful. Once I've released all those, I can pull it off the back and then the head, and we're done. And I've got a little bubble under the chin and a few in the body, but that doesn't really matter. It's meant to be the ocean. I quite like it. I wasn't sure how well the jellyfish were going to show up, or even the tendrils, but they do look pretty good. And as I say, there are bubbles in there. That's fine. You get bubbles in the ocean. So I'm really liking the way this looks with the blue mat underneath it. So I'm going to add some of this blue film. It's like the dichroic film that you can get, or sometimes called fantasy film. And I got this from Turner's Art Centre. I'll leave links for the things in the description box below. So I want to put this on the bottom of the frog, and I don't think I'm going to go into the hands, but I can get it along the arms and the body, because I think that looks great. I didn't want to tint my resin because I wasn't sure how well the jellyfish were going to show up. But I think I will put the film on the bottom. So I'm going to need to make a template, and I'll go probably as far as the feet, but I'm not going to trace all the toes. Mostly want to get the body. I made the template onto some parchment paper and I transferred it onto the film using a pencil. So I've just got my frog propped up in a mould, make sure it's level, and I'm going to use some UV resin to stick this film down. I'm putting a layer on, make sure it's centered again, and then I can lay down my piece. Now I already tested it and it's a pretty good fit. If I've got any areas that might be hanging over the edges, I'll just cut them off afterwards once I've sealed this down. So obviously because it's a transparent film, I can use my UV torch, or my lamp rather, to cure this in place. I'm just smoothing out the worst of the bubbles. Try and get as close a fit as I can. And then I'm going to cure this in place. Okay, so that is cured in place. And I really like the look of that. You can see the blue. Obviously you can't see it in the head, depending on the angle that you hold it, but I really like it and it really gives a good background. Those jellyfish are showing really well. I've got a few areas on the sides here that need to be trimmed off, and I'm going to do that off camera, and I will probably give this another coat of resin as well. But you don't need to see me do that, it's exactly the same as I've already done. There are a few bubbles, even more bubbles. As I say, that doesn't matter, it looks like the ocean, and I'm really happy with this. I probably could have fit a few more jellyfish in there for a swarm, but actually I think they would have become too confused if I had done that. Yes, I really like my jellyfish swarm frog, as I'm going to call him. And he's part of a Froggy Friday, and if you want to know what that is, it is a weekly collaboration. It was started by Lisa, Girl in the Garage, Karen of the Dragon's Cave, Loula, Nerd Goblin Art, Tim Watkins, Base Resonator, and Gert Creates. I hope you've liked this video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up and comment. Share if you can. There's a QR code up in the corner and that will help you to subscribe to my channel if you're watching on the TV. Just scan that and you will be able to subscribe. It's free and you'll be able to come back and see what I'm going to make next time. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Bye.